Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, President and Founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Stand-Up. So without any further ado, let's get started. It's Friday, so it's time for our Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Stand-Up. And I thought it would be cool to share with you something that was sent in to me that I had a chance to review and think about. And the question that somebody asked me is, let it be no secret, I'm a huge Disney fan. I mean, I'm wearing my Gaston shirt today. So someone asked me, what are some things that you feel like Disney has taught you? What are some things, some life lessons that you feel like you've learned from Disney? And I thought that was an incredibly good question. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to explore some of the things that I have learned from Disney. So without any further ado, let's talk it out. Let's see what we got. So these are things that I feel like have come from some of my memory of classic Disney movies. So I'll start with the obvious ones. I'll give you the top five. So here we go. Number one. This one has to do, or it comes from the movie Pinocchio. I'm sure you've all seen Pinocchio. So Pinocchio centers on loneliness, deception, substance abuse, child trafficking. I mean, it's disturbing to say the least. There's so many things in there that just feel like, wow, where did that come from, right? But after Pinocchio gets fooled a second time, I believe it was by Honest John, Pinocchio makes his way to Pleasure Island with the whole onslaught of all the naive boys who are just, there to get their cake, get their pie, get their ice cream and their dill pickles. Eat all you can, stuff yourselves. It's all free, right? Be indulgent. And we're quick to learn that those who overindulge turn into donkeys and became slaves. Now, at this point, Pinocchio is reunited with Jiminy Cricket, his conscience, and manages to escape this place. And I think that sometimes we overindulge and we start to ignore our conscience. And this is where we almost instantaneously lose all ties to our humanity. It's where we separate ourselves from being human and entering into a world where our intelligence, our perceived intelligence, greater than our human needs, which is definitely shouldn't be the case. But when we're not listening to our conscience, we're neglecting what it means to be a good person. This movie was just filled with issues, overeating, depression, high levels of stress. It's just, this movie was the epitome of overindulgence. And I feel like what it teaches is that overindulgence ruins your mind, it ruins your body, and it ruins your soul. So that is just a great life lesson to learn from a Disney movie. All right, coming in at number two, I took a couple of notes. Cinderella. So Cinderella has often received criticism for being one of those outdated damsel in distress fairy tales, right? And it's understandable that people look at that movie that way. But I think if you dig in deeper, there's a lot more going on. So let's take a look. So her stepmother and her stepsisters, so Lady Tremaine and Anastasia and Drizella, right? They are always on her. I mean, let's face it, Cinderella's abused, humiliated, forced to be their scullery maid. But despite all those difficulties, she still remains optimistic. She can't stop dreaming in hopes that one day her dreams will come true. And if you're familiar with the story, this is the ultimate tale of dreams do come true, right? With the fairy godmother's help, she's able to leave aside all the problems and things that are happening in her life, and she's able to become the hero or heroine, in this case, of the movie. So it's interesting to me to think that in our darkest hour, it's even more important than ever that we be optimistic. And I think that sometimes we lose that, right? And when the world's against us, we always want to point fingers, and we never want to get to that point where we're optimistic. But wallowing in self-pity isn't going to get you anywhere, right? Pointing fingers and accusing other people is not going to get you anywhere. You need to maintain a positive attitude. And, all these things are going to help you live a long and successful life. So staying positive and making sure even in the darkest times that you stay positive is something that you can learn from a Disney movie. Coming at number 3, let's talk about Alice in Wonderland. Now, Alice in Wonderland is a drug-induced strange movie, right? It's based on Lewis Carroll, of course, with the Adventures of Alice, as she falls down a rabbit hole and explores the world of nonsense with all the nonsense characters. Yes, but Alice, unlike other Disney stories, Alice is almost never assisted by anyone around her, right? The inhabitants of the Wonderland where she goes are either mad, dangerous, or sometimes a combination of both. They're not good people. And for the record, I've had an opportunity to meet this person in Disney. The Queen of Hearts must be the most terrifying character ever. I remember when we did get to meet her, I was dressed up as a Cheshire Cat. It was at one of the Halloween events there at Disney World. And my children were very young. And the Queen of Hearts was getting everyone around her to try to capture me because she wanted to cut off my head. She was bad-tempered. She scared the crap out of my kids. It was quite funny. But in the end, it's part of who she was. She never, ever broke character from the movie to in person. It's no coincidence that Alice eventually wakes up from this dream. But while everybody else was too scared to disobey orders, Alice stands up to the Queen and is able to leave this realm of Wonderland because she stood up to the Queen. So I think for me, this teaches us to have the courage to stand up for what we believe in, even if it's not always what everyone else promotes, even if it's against our natural mental capacity to do so. I think it's important for us to know that maturity is about being independent, not necessarily conforming to the norm. So for all of you who are a little bit different and you were born that way, you rock it, right? Because you do you. I can't believe I just said something Jojo Sawa said. Thanks for that. All right. Number 4. Let's talk about Aladdin. Oh, one of my favorites. So Aladdin takes us to Agrabah, the fictional city where everything in the Middle East happens, with colorful markets and a magnificent palace and all the characters. It's just Aladdin dreams of leaving his life on the streets behind and having a life filled with wealth and grandeur and living in the palace. And, I remember his quote. I think it goes like, "Someday, Abu, things are going to change. We'll be rich, live in a palace, and never have any problems at all." He just wants to just eliminate all his problems, right? And he thinks that wealth's going to get him there. Well, after being thrown into the Cave of Wonders by Jafar and trapped inside and escaping on a magic carpet and discovering the lamp, of course, with the help of Genie, Aladdin has the ability to transform into Prince Ali Baba, a rich prince with mighty entourage and all these whimsical things to try to win the Princess Jasmine's heart. He enjoys his entourage, his newfound wealth, his dance moves. Kind of funny if you've seen the live action Aladdin. But the problem with him chasing wealth is that it always leaves him wanting more. In fact, when he gets to one point, where he promised the genie that he'd use his third wish to set the genie free, he realizes that wish number 3 can't do that he needs to continue to be a prince in order to win the heart of Jasmine. And it just drove his immediate desire for more and more and more. It made him more hungry and more greedy for the things that he never should have been. But Aladdin finally came to his senses after saving the Princess Jasmine, unshackling the genie with his third wish. That's when he realizes that he has nothing, but he has everything. He has true happiness. So rather than live under the tyranny and control of his own self-created wealth, he has the ability to give back, and he has the ability to find happiness. Kindness always trumps wealth. When you put others before yourself, that's the best way for you to achieve pure contentment. I preach this one all the time. Absolutely love it. So number 4, kindness always trumps wealth. And number 5, this one comes from The Lion King. So many people out there say The Lion King is one of the greatest movies ever made. I put it in my top 10. But the lavish landscapes, the epic soundtrack, the story with all the thematic substance, the evil villain, Pride Rock. I mean, there's so many things going on. But the first act of the movie, right, that ends with Simba fleeing Pride Rock after the death of his father. So when Mufasa dies, he's burdened with guilt, weighed down. He's trying to find himself a place away, as far away from Pride Rock as he can get. And that's when he runs into Timon and Pumbaa. And Timon and Pumbaa help him escape where he was, which is cool. And when Nala finally finds Simba, she tries to persuade him to come back to Pride Rock. And she explains to him about his uncle's wicked regime and what's happening. And Simba's just, he doesn't know what to do. He's full of reluctance, right? But on with the battle, and Rafiki comes to the rescue of all people, and Rafiki helps Simba realize that he has to come to his senses and he has to take care of this. And I have a quote here as well from Lion King where Simba says, "I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past that I've been running from for so long." And I think sometimes we're all in that situation, right? Too often, negative experiences prevent us from moving forward. They prevent us from getting where we need to be. And I remember a quote from Steve Harvey, and he talked about young African-American men and some of the trials that they face. And he talked about, them climbing up the mountain, but fearing heights, but climbing up the mountain anyway, only to get to the top. And when it came time to jump, they were like, well, what happens if my parachute doesn't open? And when they opened up the parachute, they realized it wasn't a parachute at all. It was just a backpack. And they were like, what's the meaning behind this? And the fact that you're going to jump isn't so you can discover whether your parachute works or not. The fact that you're going to jump is so that the only way you will ever be able to open up your wings and fly is if you take that leap of faith. And I love when Steve Harvey said that. I just thought that was so cool, because so many people are afraid to take the leap of faith, to spread their wings and to fly. And it reminds me of the experience of Simba, where he had to go back. And when he did go back, great things happen. And it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. These examples are just a small handful of examples I could have used. I'm thinking of examples from Finding Nemo, examples from The Incredibles. I mean, there's so many movies I could have picked. If you're interested in having me do 5 more, let me know, and I'd love to do 5 more movies with you. But these are all things that we can use as life lessons. So recap quickly, make sure you get them all. 5, don't let your past stop you from moving forward. Leverage your past to help you be successful moving forward. 4, kindness always trumps wealth. Don't worry about how much money you have, worry about how well you live your life. 3, maturity is really about independence, not necessarily living in conformity with what everyone else believes you should. 2, always stay positive, even in the dark times. And 1, don't overindulge. Overindulgence ruins your mind and your body. So that'll do it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this one. This was an upbeat one for Friday. So as always, we encourage you to have an amazing weekend. Tune in next week. We got many more podcast episodes about topics that are important to you, specifically Agile topics. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay Agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care. We'll talk again soon.